Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are looking at something truly monumental. We're going to dive right in and break down a massive piece of legal history, the South African Constitutional Court case, famously known as the Fourie judgment. We're going to unpack this entire complex constitutional battle and make it crystal clear for you.
So, what actually happens when love meets the law? I want you to hold on to that thought as we go through this today, because this entire case is essentially a story about what occurs when deep, very real human emotions collide head-on with rigid, centuries-old legal structures. Right at the center of this collision were two women, Marie Adriana Fourie and Cecilia Johanna Bonthhuis. According to the court's judgment, they had already been an acknowledged couple for more than a decade. They'd built a whole life together, and, like so many people deeply in love, they just wanted public recognition. They wanted to formally embrace the rights and the responsibilities of marriage, but they were completely shut out by the law simply because they were both women.
Section 1. The desire to marry.
Think about it. There are all these tangible and intangible benefits to marriage that heterosexual couples honestly kind of take for granted. As the judgment points out, marriage isn't just a piece of paper. It offers public celebration and recognition. It creates a reciprocal duty of support, meaning you're legally bound to care for one another. It involves joint estate management, and it automatically grants next of kin rights for crucial things like medical emergencies or inheritance. It provides this massive umbrella of security.
And that brings us to this absolutely beautiful Latin phrase used by the court. Consortium omnis vitae. It translates to the physical, moral, and spiritual community of life between partners. The court made a really crucial observation here. They noted that same-sex couples have the exact same ability to establish this deep, multifaceted bond as heterosexual couples do. They provide emotional support, physical care, and financial assistance. They form real families.
Section 2. Two legal roadblocks. So, Marie and Cecilia found themselves facing two massive legal brick walls. First was the common law definition, which historically defined marriage strictly as a union of one man with one woman. But common law isn't self-enforcing, right? You need a statute. And that brings us to the second hurdle, the Marriage Act. Section 31 prescribed a specific vow requiring the marriage officer to ask if the person takes their lawful wife or husband. Because Marie and Cecilia couldn't fit this really specific exclusionary wording, the law basically provided zero mechanism for them to actually marry.
Which leads to this incredibly poignant observation from Justice Sachs in the judgment. He wrote, "Far from enabling them to regularize their union, it shuts them out unfairly and unconstitutionally." The law was literally operating as a closed door. Instead of protecting them, the court found that it forced same-sex couples to live in this painful state of legal blankness, completely without the public recognition that their relationship deserved.
Section 3. The Constitutional Clash.
Now, to really grasp the weight of this case, we have to look back a little bit. In the pre-democratic era, prior to 1994, same-sex unions weren't just ignored. Private acts between men were actually criminalized. But then comes this massive historical shift. In 1996, the new Constitution comes into force, and it explicitly protects against discrimination based on sexual orientation. And that sets the stage for 2005, when the Fourie case reaches the Constitutional Court to test whether those old marriage laws can actually survive under this brand new Constitution.
At the very heart of the matter was Section 9(3) of the new Constitution. It explicitly states that the state may not unfairly discriminate, directly or indirectly, against anyone on several grounds, and that includes sexual orientation. The overarching traditional common law and those specific vows in the Marriage Act were fundamentally clashing with this powerful, newly minted constitutional right.
The court actually found that two intersecting constitutional rights were being violated here. First, the right to equal protection and benefit of the law, and second, the right to inherent human dignity. The court emphasized that excluding these couples sent a deeply demeaning message, that their capacity for love and commitment was somehow less worthy of regard.
Section 4. Weighing the arguments. Now, in court, the state and amici curiae presented a few key arguments to keep marriage strictly heterosexual. First, they argued that procreation is essential to marriage. The court rebutted this by just pointing out that the law happily marries infertile couples, older couples, and couples who simply choose not to have children. Second, it was argued that religion forbids same-sex marriage. The court noted that in a diverse democracy, the state simply cannot impose religious dogma on the whole of society. And finally, the state argued that international law primarily recognizes heterosexual marriage. To that, the court responded that human rights treaties don't just freeze rights in time. As humanity evolves, so do our concepts of justice and equity.
This is a crucial detail here. The court navigated the tension between religion and the state by drawing a really vital distinction between the secular realm and the sacred realm. The court reasoned that the state, which operates in the secular realm, absolutely must treat all its citizens with constitutional equality. However, over in the sacred realm, religious officers and institutions are fully protected by religious freedom, meaning no religious minister can be compelled to perform a same-sex marriage if it violates their tenets. They can coexist.
And that leads us to a defining principle of the entire judgment. Justice Sachs wrote, "The hallmark of an open and democratic society is its capacity to accommodate and manage difference." The court's view was that true equality means showing equal concern and respect across all our differences. It's not about forcing everyone to be exactly the same, right? It's about acknowledging difference without making it a basis for marginalization or exclusion.
Section 5, the final verdict.
So the court took a very methodical step-by-step path to its historic ruling here. First, they openly acknowledged the deep historical sting of exclusion and the marginalization that gays and lesbians faced. Second, because of this unfair discrimination, they formally declared the common law definition of marriage and Section 31 of the Marriage Act unconstitutional. And third, they demanded equal access. The state had to provide a mechanism for same-sex couples to enjoy the exact same status, entitlements, and responsibilities as heterosexual couples.
Then the court delivered this incredibly powerful concluding thought. To penalize people for being who and what they are is profoundly disrespectful of the human personality and violatory of equality. With this statement, the court legally struck down the harmful stereotype that homosexuals were biological oddities or outsiders, and placed their dignity at the very center of the Constitution.
And they actually went further. The court recognized the massive, overarching impact of their decision. Justice Sachs wrote, "What is at stake is not simply a question of removing an injustice. At issue is a need to affirm the very character of our society." This wasn't just about a marriage license anymore. It was about defining South Africa as a nation based on tolerance, mutual respect, and diversity. Which brings us right to the emotional peak of the judgment. It's a beautifully poetic conclusion to what is a really complex legal document. Speaking of the couples who had waited so incredibly long for recognition, Sachs concluded, "Their love that was once forced to be clandestine may now dare openly to speak its name." It's just a profound victory for human dignity, officially ending the era of legal blankness for same-sex couples.
So we're going to wrap up our explainer today with a question for you to ponder. How does the law shape who belongs and who remains an outsider in your society? The Fourie case really shows us that the law isn't just a set of rules, it's a mirror reflecting who we value. Thank you so much for hanging out with me to learn about this incredible piece of constitutional history. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you next time.